Frank and I were talking a while back that a lot of the newer members of Elysian Lodge, in fact, most of the current members, really don't have an idea of some of the history of Elysian Lodge. Don't really have a grasp of who the Order of Malay is, or the Job's Daughters, affectionately called the Jobies. Elysian sponsored and actively supported Alexander G. Cochran Chapter Order of Malay, and also Bethel 11, International Order of Job's Daughters. And this, of course, was a few years back, not that far, but they supported them for a long, long time. I want to be able to tell you a little about each of the organizations and their interactions between each other and of our lodge. And I think you'll be kind of surprised the depth of these two organizations, how active they were, and how much they meant to Elysian, and how much Elysian meant to them. And the nice thing about it, DMLA, throughout all the years, it's still around today, and it's still sponsored by Masonic organizations. Records show that DMLA existed at Elysian in the 1930s and 40s, but I have never been able to find out other than conversation with a past master that some of you remember, Glenn Layton. But he was a member of DMLA at Elysian, Cochran Chapter, and I think it was back in the 40s, or even maybe a little earlier. Received into DMLA. In fact, I took my first degree in March of 1955. So most of my recollections, obviously, are from then. There was a resurgent in interest and activity in DMLA in the 1950s. So I think what happened was DMLA kind of faded out a little bit, and then around 52, 53, maybe 54, it became popular again, you might say. And it lasted Elysian, don't have the exact month or date or what have you, but it seems to me it was around the 1970s, middle, late, may have gone into the 80s. But I think it just kind of faded, times changed, people's desires to belong to organizations changed, but the renaissance, you might say, of DMLA at Elysian was around 52 or 53. Description of what DMLA is. And I think it is really needed in today's world. A character building organization and leadership development with the aim of building better sons, which in turn means better men, to be better citizens, better fathers, better friends, and leaders in the future.
Worshipful, there's a picture of Ray Colts up here. Can you see it?
I see Ray, yeah. And in fact, Ray is behind the, I'll tell you what that picture is. Let me give you, that was about 1958, I think, or something like that, 57. And we used to have dances with the Jobies. I mean, this is a highlight, really, of my life. I mean, it was just wonderful. The friendliness, I mean, it was strictly a fun, happy, wonderful time. This was taken at the old lodge down there at Sunset and Echo Park. And there was a unique thing down there. The lodge was on the second floor above a corner, there it is right there, a drugstore. And that second floor contained a lodge room and a tiny kitchen and a long, skinny dining room, which hardly said anybody. So every time Elysian Lodge had a dinner, be it a stated meeting dinner or whatever, we had to roll the rug up and then lay down a canvas rug if it was going to be a dinner, set up the tables, and there's a picture here somewhere in this collection that Frank has accumulated. And it actually shows, and it's kind of, it shows all these tables and all the people. there in the lodge room that's been set up and was currently used then as a dining room. Getting back to that picture of the, there it is right there. That's the old lodge looking towards the east. You can see on the right the junior warden station, but the rug had been rolled up. They had a kind of a core for the rug, and we rolled and rolled and rolled, and underneath was this beautiful hardwood, I think it was maple, very light colored wood floor. Wonderful dance floor. And it was a great place for the dinners also. We were there as D. Malays at that time. I'm not that old that I go back to being a Mason. When I became a Mason, Elysian had already moved to the new building there in Los Feliz. But going back to that picture, every time we had a dance, we would meet, like it was going to be a Saturday night. We would meet around noontime. If you can go back to that picture, Frank, we'd meet around noontime and spend a couple hours there. There it is, decorating. Yeah, leave it there because there's another thing I want to refer to that's part of Elysian's history. But we would stay there, and it was almost like having a party in the middle of the day decorating. And a lot of the D. Malays would be there, and the Jobies would be there. And oh gosh, we had put up all the streamers and all the stuff and what have you. But one of the fun things was rolling up that rug. And for a kid, 15, 14, 15, 16 years old, I mean, it was just super setting up for the dances. And we always had a photographer. And there was a fella, I can't remember his name right this second, but he came to all of our activities. And he wasn't a professional guy that had a big company, but he did great photography. And the girls primarily, the Jobies would set up a backdrop for photographs. This particular dance, they set up a new moon, and you'd get your picture taken in front of the moon. And we were just having fun that day, and over to the right, I'm holding up the thing. Rusty or Ray Colts, our past master, there you always see is his head. Right in the middle is Paul Holney. He became an attorney up in Solvang. In fact, yeah, I think he's still practicing a bit, but he's the longest serving, or as far as it being an attorney. Age-wise, he's probably not the oldest, but he's been up there with an active office longer than anybody in that whole Santa Ynez Valley. To the left is probably my best friend in life, Tom Fishburne. And he was a member of D. Malay and Elysian until his death here about 4 or 5 years ago. In the middle was Joe Myers. Joe never became a Mason, and he passed away a number of years ago. But there's kind of a typical example right there of what the fun part of D. Malay was. The real part is the ritual and the story and the guidance that it gives young men in approaching manhood. And but we had so much fun at these parties and dances, and really we did it right. Frank, could you kind of go down on that a little so I can see a little higher up on that picture? Okay, right there. Look in the back. You see there's a paint, that's the east, where the senior warden sits. And up on the top, here's a good part of the history of Elysian. Elysian had a motto, and it was, many hands make heavy burdens light. And they actually had that painted. It was real pretty. It's like a thin little banner, and it was painted all right on the wall across the east. And that appeared many, many times in a lot of the conversation of Elysian Lodge. And that became kind of a, it was kind of nice to have up there. In fact, for many years.
Was there a banner also on the outside of our lodge with that on there?
Oh, no. That was personal to the members of the lodge.
I see. Okay.
That was in no way advertisement. It was kind of a feel-good thing with the members that, we all work together and get this thing done, and it was
in the lodge room.
Hard job or undesirable or what have you. let's get together. We all do it. We get the dang thing done, and that's the end of it. And so Tommy down there on the left on the picture, he always wanted to have that painted on Elysian's wall at our current lodge. And it got talked about years and years ago, but it really never took off. And it's mentioned, I think, when we revised the historical brochure for Elysian, which we revised it for our 100th back in 10 years ago. We added this to it and made reference to that motto of Elysian Lodge. So that may be something that in the future we may want to reconstruct or what have you. But to me, it's kind of nice. I've always remembered it. I'll bet you almost any older member of Elysian will remember that vividly. So that is, I'm glad you showed that. Order of D. Malay is a youth organization. Well, here, we're going through these things. This is kind of fun. Here is a picture. That's probably in 57. Well, no, same night. There we are. There's the moon right in the back. And there's me, Bob Petersen. There's Joe there with, I can't remember her name. There's Tom Fishburne, Shirley Ogden, who was a past honored queen. Over to the left is Ray Colts. He became quite an attorney. Yeah, a little larger, and that's his wife, Jenny, Virginia. Unfortunately, she, at a fairly early age, they have 2 children. She got actually brain cancer, I think it was, and passed away at a way too early in life. Then up on top is Paul Halmy, and he's the fellow I told you was the attorney up in the Solvang area. And that is Nancy Strow. Her mother was Wilma Strow, which was for years, almost as long as Bethel 11 existed. Her mother was I forget now what the name was of it, but she pretty well was the adult supervisor, totally, extremely successful in making one of the most outstanding Bethels you could ever want to have anywhere. And but that's a group right there. And but that, yeah, it's funny you show that, and that moon cutout is in the back, and that just shows it how we used to take photos all the time and have the backdrop. As long as we're going through the pictures, that's kind of fun. Why don't you go to another one with the D. Malays? There we go. There we go. That's a good one. Now that goes back to Tom Fishburne in the center there, to the left of our chapter sweetheart. That was Linda Denman. Yeah, so yeah, 58 shows on there. Tommy was in fact, he was a lifelong friend of me. We went to grammar school. We went to junior high together, high school together, and some of us in there went to, after we graduated, we went in the Army together and joined together, and then came back and went to college. So it was kind of we all became friends through D. Malay, and our lives kind of moved on. But there's a good example. They're standing at the old lodge in the east, and the backdrop behind where the master sits, that was a drape, a very kind of a purplish blue, tan colored drape, very, very ornate. And all the boys, those are the D. Malay robes. I don't know today, I mean, that goes back many, many years. I think they're probably pretty much the same. I know the emblem you see on each of the robes, that is the current emblem that's in existence today. But look at those faces. I mean, gosh, we were all probably 17, 18 years old, and it just amazing. I don't know how many of us are still around. I think probably most of us. But what a great picture. Why don't you move on to the next? By the way, that was at a installation of officers, and every chapter had a chapter sweetheart. And each DMLA year, which was the term of officers, was 6 months, and it all changed. There's a good one. You know, it's kind of nice in a way. We're talking about the kids at the time. There were some marriages that, out of friendships and relationships that developed out of between DMLAs of Cochrane and Jobies of Bethel 11. And there, to set the thing straight, there's Bob Petersen on the left. There's Terry Shaw. He is the one getting married. There's Tommy Fishburne, and he's kind of making fun with him, showing his watch that there's not much time left. You know, you're only going to be a single guy for a few more minutes. And then to the right of that is Ray Colts. And I think if we could kind of pan to the left a little, there's one more, no, the other way. Yeah, and Carlos Fernandez. The one on the extreme right is Carlos Fernandez of DMLA. And he too was a lifelong member a friend of mine since grammar school, in fact, kindergarten actually. And he was an attorney, and unfortunately he too passed away, but we're still friends with Terry and Sandy Doyle, Sandra. They're still married. They live in Texas. Great people. You couldn't find nicer people in the world. Yeah, let's go to the next one. That's there we go. That's the cool heads. Every year, Cochrane chapter, and I think most chapters did this, but we were very closely aligned with Bethel 11. And once a year, and sometimes on special occasions, we would go together with them for a church Sunday. And one of the kids would pick out church they attended. And this one here was at Ray Colts's church he attended when he was a kid, St. Athanasius, which is on right opposite Echo Park. You could stand where we're standing there and look straight ahead, and you would see the lake. And it was a great experience. You know, it just, things were so uncomplicated then. And, you know, everybody wasn't picking sides and what have you. But when we got together as a group, that's what we were. We were a group. This group here was Carlos Fernandez on the left, me, Bob Petersen, Tommy Fishburne, and one of our DMLAs, Floyd Clausen. And I guess we were just trying to be cool heads and put on the shades. Before I go to some of these other pictures with you, Frank, let me finish up a little on DMLA and Jobies, and then we can move back to Elysian and talk a little more about some of the events. Those of you that, and I'll go through this just very briefly, but it was interesting. Petitioning a chapter for membership of DMLA is pretty much just like petitioning a lodge for membership. And each chapter is composed of the members with both elected and appointed officers. Very well, it was formed by Masons, so you'd have to think that it pretty well replicates the whole idea of what Masonry is and how it's organized. We had 2 degrees, the initiatory degree and the DMLA degree. Both of them were, I would love to go see that again. I haven't seen either of them in years. And the principal adult leader, here's something that is important. The principal adult leader of a DMLA chapter, his title is Chapter Dad. And he's the head adult. He's the guy that the guys really relate to and interact with and what have you. And we had, when I joined in 1955, the chapter dad was Joe Forrest, past master of Elysian Lodge. And I'll tell you something, that guy just, you couldn't meet the guy and talk to him without giving him the ultimate of respect. And he was chapter dad for a long time. I don't remember when he was master, but it had to have been back in maybe during the war, during the 40s or something like that. But he was one of many chapter dads. Not all members of advisory boards and chapter dads have to be from the sponsoring body.
What was his last name again?
Forrest, Forest, Joseph Forrest. And each chapter, moving on here, each chapter had an advisory board. And this is where a lot of the interaction between DeMolays and Elysian transpired. Again, all the members of the advisory board were required to be Masons, but they didn't all have to be, from Elysian Lodge. And in a way that brought a lot of diversity into it, not diversity of ethnicity or nothing like that, but diversity of thought and lodges, and different lodges, do different things, what have you. And it just made the whole mix so much better. But we had a wonderful advisory board, wonderful chairman, members, and when a boy got out of, like, after he became master counselor of DeMolay, if he wanted to still be active before he became a Mason, they had the associate advisor position. We used to have a lot of the kids, after becoming PMC, they would become associate advisors. And then as soon as they became 21, by golly, they would become members of Elysian. And it was an honor to have, and it was very interesting. For instance, Art Holt, who was a past master of Elysian, had a wonderful insurance agency of his, Art Holt and Associates. He, asked me if I would promise that he could give me the petition to Elysian, and he wanted to be known for, be the first signer for me. And each of these Masons, they did this, and it was part of the mentoring that I want to talk about in just a few minutes. And in fact, I remember the day that he had an office down on South Vermont, and I met him one day, and he wanted to go to lunch. And we went to lunch together, and he told me about Masonry, and even though I knew him through DeMolay and what have you, it was a little different now. We were two adults, obviously over 21. Now I wanted to petition the lodge to become a Mason. So the conversation changed, and
Worshipful. What year did they? Because now it's 18 and over. Back then it was 20. You had to be 21 to be a Mason. Do you remember when that change occurred?
I really don't. I don't think it was too many years ago, but yeah, in those days, yes, you have to be 21, and I really don't know when that change was made. I want to just kind of reminisce with you a little bit on some of the things DeMolays did along with Elysian Lodge, and I'm sorry today that we don't have a DeMolay chapter. It would be a horrendous effort to start one today in today's environment. I don't know how really you'd go about doing it. We were very fortunate. We grew up in a certain time at a different era and what have you. Maybe that was more ripe to such an organization as DeMolay. Maybe today, maybe it isn't as much. I don't know. Our own lodges. Look at the drought that we had for all the years when it was hard to get members. Now it seems to be picking up again. But things go in cycles, and I've been told many times over life that life is an average, and I sure believe it. Let me give you just a little bit here about the ritual. DeMolay conducted the degrees, they conducted their meetings, their installation of officers. They had the same training like we as adults, people that men that aren't DeMolays coming to Elysian Lodge, for instance. They learn things about ritual and things they probably had never experienced before. Well, here's a bunch of kids that learned to do that from 14 years old on. And believe me, it was meaningful. I've talked to you a little about the church Sunday we used to have every year or more. We used to have the Demolay Joby dances, and I'm sure, David, you're listening, being a Demolay, ex-Demolay, past Demolay of Hollywood chapter, you remember those. We also had kind of big time things we used to do. Our past master, Ray Colts, his father, Don Colts, who was certainly a mentor of mine, they had a cabin, beautiful two-story cabin up in Big Bear. And they would take, over the Christmas break, the Christmas holiday, we'd go up there for a long weekend up at Big Bear. And oh my God, did we have fun. I mean, you couldn't ask for a nicer, and it was all chaperoned. Mr. Colts, I call him Don Colts, went, and then Charles Schertle, our past inspector, our past master, he used to go all the time. And we had many fellows that would go from Elysian Lodge, and it wasn't a bunch of kids getting together to raise hell. It was a bunch of good kids getting together with adults who they respected. It was wonderful. We also had every year we had two things we did as a group, kind of activity-wise, and it was fun. It was with the Jobies, and a little bit with Elysian, only because of some of them, the fellows had dads that were Masons and what have you. But Bethel 11 had 2 yearly trips. In the summertime, they rented a house for an entire week on Balboa Island. What a place that was in the 50s, with the amusement zone, and then the ferry across the channel there and what have you. Let me tell you, we just had a marvelous time going down. We'd go down for the day, and the girls would put on a little party and what have you. And it would be just great. Then in the wintertime, when it snowed, the girls would rent for a weekend up in Crestline, up in the mountains, a place, and we, Demolays, guess what? We'd all get together and go up and spend a day with them up there. So there was this continual interaction between the Demolays, the Jobies of Bethel 11, and Elysian Lodge. One of the things that really I was impressed with Elysian and the men of the time that were there as members, we did a lot of fundraising, and Demolays did a lot of stuff, and doing stuff costs money. And even back in those days, it was relevant. I mean, a buck was still a buck, and it bought $1 worth of whatever. But we had fundraisers, which we were supported wholeheartedly by Elysian Lodge. Our biggest, and it started in my year as master counselor, and it lasted for 10 consecutive years. We actually ran a Christmas tree lot. And we did that for 10 straight years, 1958 to 1968. And honest to gosh, there were, I think, 3 years that we actually had 2 lots that we ran. And the one I'm kind of proud of is, and I don't remember, probably 2/3 the way through the 10. If you remember, in Hollywood, on the northeast corner of Sunset and Sunset and Vine, there was the old NBC radio broadcasting building. Well, during the 50s, that was torn down, and it was nothing but a vacant lot. So I don't remember the details, who we got. It was probably Don Colts, Mr. Colts. Somehow we got an angle on renting space on that vacant lot. And we brought in the generator. We had no way of getting power there, but through the certain members of Elysian that helped us with the insurance and the sales tax permits and Department of Water Power permits and all the things you have to go through to ensure to run something like a demolay or a Christmas tree lot. We did it, and for gosh sakes, for 2 years, and I'm really proud of it. I've never forgot it. We still talk about it when I see people that were involved. We actually had a Christmas tree lot at the corner of Sunset and Vine. In fact, both those years when the parade, the Hollywood Boulevard parade, used to go, I guess, down Hollywood Boulevard, make a turn, and would come up Sunset or Vine, I don't remember which, and we'd always get a shout out by Santa. And I remember that so vividly. I just wish in those days we had you know, cameras like, or phones like we have today with the close, you know, we have cameras with us all the time. I just wish we could have had some pictures of that and some of the memorable occasions. It was just marvelous. But we did a lot of things for fundraising. We had paper drives. Back in those days, a lot of organizations collected papers and you can get money out of them. We actually had light bulb sales. In other words, we got hold of a distributor and we had a deal on light bulbs and made an order for them and tried to get people to buy light bulbs from us. Made a little money on that. Something else we did in Masonry, not Elysian, but in a way, we had one of our past masters, I can't remember his name right this second, but he was also a member of Vallée de France Lodge, the lodge that would present the first degree in French. And it was very, very popular. And the French Lodge met at a Masonic lodge down there at Pico Boulevard and Orchard, which was between, you might say, on the south side of Pico, between South Vermont and, say, Hoover or Alvarado. And through the past master of ours that was a member of the lodge, he got us the opportunity to serve the dinner. And obviously after the dinner, there was a jar on the table and those attending were asked to, you know, contribute to the servers being Cochrane Demolays. And there were tons of people. If I remember, they had more than one dinner shift. I may be wrong, but sometimes I think there was at least a couple hundred people there. Not only was as after we became Masons, we went and saw the degree. Really something to see, quite an event. But we always look back at the French Lodge as really being part of the helping us with a fundraising event. We used to have pancake breakfast on Sundays and charge a little bit for those. And then we had a mother's club. It was Demolay is pretty family oriented, pretty conservative, and you know the family is very important. And we had a mother's club that was extremely active. And each year they would have a rummage sale in Pasadena, which is now part of the area there on Fair Oaks, which is now Old Town. And they would raise enough money to contribute to Cochrane chapter and, you know, provide the wants of the lodge. One thing I've got to mention here, I'm getting close to the end of Demolay, but sports was a big part of Cochrane and Demolay in general. The sports of Demolay was basketball, softball, and we held track meets. Basketball was the biggie. And we had, I don't think many of you know this, Cochrane had a really arch rival, Atwater chapter, who met over there at on Rowena, where you know Atwater Tila Pass meets today, and the rivalry was unbelievable. They had a wonderful chapter dad also. Been there, was that for years, Don Hardin, and he was the inspector for Elysian. I'll think of his name in a minute, but he was at the, we had a...
Is it Dandridge?
Yeah, Dandridge. Yeah, he was a DMLA the same time I was a DMLA, but he was at Atwater. I obviously was at Cochrane, and it was a friendly rivalship. But let me tell you how competitive it got. In basketball in particular, we were in the Northern League of the Southern California DMLA as far as sports. Cochrane, we actually had a guy join our lodge who was all city center for Poly High School, the original Poly downtown. And Atwater went out and got an all-league player in basketball from Marshall. So for a year, we had two of the top, an all-city and an all-league ball player playing basketball against each other. I can't tell you how exciting that was that year. But it all turned out good. We were always friends and what have you. But sports was so important, and we all got involved in it, and everybody got to play. And what great memories. That's all I can say. So in general, and kind of concluding here, our lodge was really an active sponsor of both organizations. I speak more about DMLA tonight than I have Joby's. There's a story to tell about the Joby's, and I hope at a future date that we can find time to tell some about the Joby's and the women and the men and Elysian and some of that story, because that's a success story also. One thing I've got to mention here, and if nothing else, one of the most important relationships with Elysian was that Elysian provide mentors to us boys. Excuse me. As they advanced into adult life, there's a lot of opportunities, and some are not good and some are, bad, but there's a lot of good ones. And we were fortunate at that time of our lives and what have you, and at that period with Elysian. Elysian had so many men in, again, diverse occupations and professions. My gosh, not give names or nothing, but we had heavy influence in law, education, business, insurance, construction, the trades, the building trades, public service, medical, law enforcement, LAPD, railroad. Back in those days, we had people that were just so well equipped to mentor young men. And believe me, it was done in such a friendly manner, and I think we all learned from that. The paths of life, it's very important that the decisions you make at that early age are so important, because they're lasting, excuse me, and they'll stay with you the whole time. I won't go through the name of all of the names, but today, really, it's sad in a way. There's very little remains of the evidence of the successful and outstanding relationships. I call it the experience, the Elysian, Cochrane DMLA, Bethel 11 experience. We do have that trophy case in the lounge, and I would hope that I think most of you have looked at it, but look at some of the names on those trophies, what the trophies represent, and some of the names, and you'll see a lot of history of Elysian. And one thing interesting too, when the lodge was built, all of the altar, the master's podium, the warden's podiums were all made, and the Tyler's desk, I think was part of it too, was all made of the same material, the same wood. And the Mothers Club, when they had that trophy case built, and if you look, there's a label up there, the trophy case. I wish they had put the date on it, but they didn't. But it too was made by the same cabinet maker the same carpenter that, and the same wood, that the wood of our new lodge, which today it's not new anymore, but our new lodge as opposed to the one above the drugstore in Echo Park. A few members, and it's unfortunate, but that's life, are still members. A few DMLAs that were Cochran DMLAs are still members of Elysian. And there's few of them, but Ray Colts, who lives in near Coeur d'Alene, Idaho at Hayden Lake. Gene Mueller, he lives in the state of Washington in visible distance from the Canadian border. Bob Holt, son of Art Holt, the past master of Elysian. I think he still lives in Las Vegas. Myself, and I may have missed one or two because I don't really haven't seen a roster of Elysian for a long time. But it's kind of sad. And I'll mention David Culp. We only right now, as far as Elysian officers and really active members of Elysian, Dave is the only one that was a member of Hollywood chapter. He's a past member of Hollywood. Dave, I don't know if you were a master counselor or not, but I do know that you participated in the experience.
And
you have,
I can talk to you now. And anyway, you mentioned Vernon Dandridge. He was in high school with me at John Marshall. He was LAPD for over 30 years, retired. And he says there's good cops, not so good cops, and bad cops, just like any other place. And he said he never roughed up a suspect unless they spit on him. Then he roughed them up. So that's fair enough. I would do the same thing.
Yeah. You know, when Frank brought this up to me, I talked about the history of DMLA. You know, I welcome, excuse me, I welcomed it because it's nice to relate good things to people. And Elysian Lodge is, and the DMLA chapters, wherever they are over the world, they're international. Same with Joby Bethels, and same with Rainbow for Girls. You're talking about the youth of our country and of the world, really. And this is a wonderful opportunity for these kids to see and experience the good things in life. True, not everybody follows that path, and you know, everybody has their opinions, which they should. In other words, we shouldn't be told what to think or how to think or what have you, but we should listen to everything that we can and make conclusions on our own. And the conclusion I made after all these years, since 1955 with DMLA, one of the best things I ever did, and I hate to bring the personal thing into it, but through the mentoring and what have you, the path I took for a career over my lifetime just ended here in July of last year. 60 years in the same industry, and with 3 companies that started with doing the electrical, believe it or not, I laugh at it, for the first DMLA Christmas tree lot. So that's kind of the story. So I don't know if some of you would like to ask any questions or what have you.
Yes, I would, Worshipful.
Just let me finish one thing. The finishing up here, I hope that Frank, I think this is wonderful what you put together, and more so in as much as the shut-in thing that we all are as organizations. But I would like to have the opportunity to present again to the membership a little more on the Jobies. We never were involved with Rainbow for Girls, but the Jobies history is really, really super. And I would like to see that. And also, there's a lot of history of Elysian Lodge that's buried. Not that we're going to relive history or we should live in the past. Never should we live in the past. But you know something? We learn something from what those before us accomplished. And believe me, there's a lot that was accomplished in over 110 years of existence. Same lodge, the same name, the same number, never had to merge or anything like that. We're very lucky. There, keep that on if you would. Frank, keep that picture there if you would. Give you a little insight. But there's a lot to learn here, and I'd like to see this history thing. Would be good to continue. I know my son Robert, who you know is a past master of Elysian, worked hard with you guys on putting together a lot of the history room. He was a history major, loves history, has a podcast quite successful on history, and it'd be nice to continue this and make it a thing that kind of lives for a while. That picture is very interesting there. In years past, to become a Shriner, you have to be a Scottish Rite member. And in 1983, a bunch of us got together and wanted to join Almalika Shrine. So we got together and formed a group, and we called it the screen is too small, Fender Center, I forget what it was. But we all got together and got our Scottish Rite initiation together. Jack Sylvain is on the left. He's a past master. He was a federal police officer. Victor Batarsi, great guy. He's a past master. His family, I don't know if any of you that grew up in the area around Silver Lake and what have you in Los Feliz, the old restaurant, the Thistle Inn, kind of a hangout for a lot of us for clients and what have you. He and his brothers bought that. Carlos Cortez, he's still a member of Elysian Lodge. Wasn't a DeMolay, but I saw him at a wedding here a couple of years ago, had dinner with he and his wife, Sylvia. What a great guy. There's Petersen. There's two guys that were super in DeMolay, the Pendle, P-E-N-D-L, the Pendle brothers. Corny, name is Cornelius, we called him Corny, and Jack. They were taxidermists, and they had, their father and mother and them had a taxidermy company forever. And as DeMolays, we used to go down to the shop on the corner of Hoover and Washington Boulevard, and they would take time off from what they were doing there with their business and spend whatever was necessary to help us as DeMolays learn our parts, both as officers and as the parts as we became members. And it was a treat for us too, because I don't know how many if any of you have ever been to a company, a taxidermy company, but my gosh, what an experience seeing all the animals in various states of revival, I guess. And but it was super. In the middle, Carlos Fernandez, great guy, and Tom Fishburne to his right, another great guy. Three of us went through life together, you might say. Unfortunately, both of them were passed away. Then Bob Fowler, a terrific guy, past master of Elysian Lodge. His daughter, Gloria, I sure would love to know what happened to her. She's the artist that did a couple of paintings of the Elysian Lodge as it exists today that hang in the room, the memory or history room. And then on the right-hand side, and I can't remember his name, but he was not a past master, but he was a member of Elysian Lodge. But there's an example right there. You know, a bunch of us got together. Hey, let's become Shriners. Okay, well, to do that, let's become Shriners. We got to become Scottish Rite. So we all joined LA Scottish Rite. Took our degrees down there on Wilshire Boulevard, the old Shrine building, or excuse me, the Scottish Rite building, and all went to Vegas together. And we just had a blast. It just, you can have fun not only as kids, but you can have fun as you get older too. And being members of the same group and having a lot of the same fundamental beliefs, it only adds to it. and kind of guarantees success. So with that, until next time, maybe, I think, unless you've got a couple other pictures there you want to.
I have 2 questions, and I want to run through just a couple pictures, and then
Sure.
we'll open it up for some questions. Okay, we have an old organ, and it looks pretty intricate at the lodge. And I wonder if you knew, I think it was donated by somebody.
It was?
If you knew the history of that, and then, of course, the mural and how that came about with Millard Sheets designing the mural that's in our banquet hall.
Oh, gosh. So those
I
are.
know all about that organ you're talking about. That was a gift to the lodge when the temple was built in 1958 by a wealthy donor. And when I came over here in 2011, I was told it hadn't been played in 30 years since our last organist passed away. And it wasn't working, and I fooled around with it and got parts for it and got it to work. And the Worshipful, that was Crazy Ernie at the time, he says, well, you fixed it, you play it now. So that's how I got my job in the lodge. That's the history of that organ. That's a Hammond, the best organ you could buy, very expensive.
Yeah,
Solid wood. I mean, it's about 2,000 pounds or something, very solid. That's the history of that organ. And it's in the back of the kitchen right now, collecting dust. If you want to get it up, I'll work on it again and get it going.
There's a nameplate, a micarta nameplate on it, I think, with the name of the donor of that. Yes,
Yeah,
I can't remember his
yeah,
name.
it's on the front.
And there was another thing that was donated to the lodge at the time. That lodge was built, and that's a flagpole out front. If you look at the flagpole, there should still be, hopefully it's still there, a metal label, I think it is. Walla Cotter, I don't remember. I think that was a past master of Elysian that donated. You know, that's something too that would make a wonderful story. It's a true story, and that's the construction of Elysian Lodge in Los Feliz. There's story after story after story that is so interesting, how a group of men get together and build a building. And some of the things, some of us went to not lodge, but Dean Malay for a number of years over at the old lodge. There's so many stories about the old lodge too that are just fascinating. I think as Masons, as members of Elysian, I think you'd be so interested in hearing some of them. I enjoy just thinking about them sometimes. But Millard Sheets, the artist that painted that mural, there's a story into itself. A few years back, we had the LA Conservancy, who protects things in the city of LA and what have you. And they asked to be able to use our lodge for a dinner and a kind of a presentation they had. So we allowed them to come over and, free gratis. We had them come in, and they were mystified by some of the features of Elysian Lodge. The number one that hit them, and most of them are professionals, and they couldn't believe that Millard Sheets mural. I mean, they just couldn't get over it. They couldn't get over the chandeliers in the rotunda, in the Tyler's room. One thing that fascinated them was the built-in flush-mounted porcelain enamel drinking fountains. I mean, that apparently hasn't been seen in who knows how long. But there's so many things that can be told about Elysian Lodge and how it was built. And
how did Millard Sheets come to be involved in making that mural? He was not a Mason, but he also designed the shrine on Wilshire, as he's the architect of record there. How did it come about that he did this mural? Do you know?
No, I don't. I could probably find out a little about it. He also did the home savings and loan buildings. Remember those that were scattered throughout?
Yeah, all the murals at the home savings. That's right.
Yes, and so I could probably find out a little about that, but it would be kind of a fun thing here to put together for Elysian, and there's a wealth of knowledge there. Look at these pictures of the Corps of Officers. There's Carlos. That goes back a while. And Pete
Chirikian, yeah.
Billy.
Cirillo?
Billy was a senior. He is a big exec with Union Oil, and he was our secretary for so many years, both of the Temple Association and of the Lodge.
Is that Pogos in the back? With the goat? Just kidding.
No, can't remember his name right now. There's Irv over in the top left. And
that's Vern in the front row.
There's Vern and Cirillo. And
Billy.
what a bunch of great guys, great memories. Everybody's personality was wonderful. We had very little problem. We had some problem, but nothing. There's Abe, 2003. He was quite a guy. It's nice seeing these. Once you scroll down a few more, well, there's a Billy Dean certificate. Ray Colts was mastered in at the 75th anniversary, and it keeps going on, and it just I could sit here and talk forever, I guess, but one thing Robert Orr, there was a guy, Robert Orr, and Enrique Passos, that was his name that I told you on the other the class of whatever it was 83 of Scottish Rite, Enrique Passos. There's Jim Watson down there at the bottom left. And
there's Watson, yeah.
There's Watson, and gosh, what a wonderful group.
Paul Bolin,
Doyle Halton, and
Doyle Halton. I would always wear Watson's apron.
He always would. He was a professional clown with
He was a pilot.
Yep.
Yeah. And I always wore his apron. When I wore a past master's apron, I always put his.
There's two major on the left-hand side there with Watson. There's all those guys were very, very, very important. There's an older group of
look how young Billy Dean looks here.
Yeah, he was. Ron Muir up there. He was a DMLA, kind of up the center to the right just a little bit with a little tie on there with a mustache. He was a DMLA. And that's 1960. That's when the, I guess that's Scottish Rite, maybe with the feathered.
It's like the York Rite.
York Rite, probably with the feathered hats. It was presentation to Cliff Schillinger. Boy, what a guy he was. Wonderful, of a flag. I think if you look at that awful small screen I'm looking at.
This is Los Angeles Commander number 9.
I'm not sure who that was.
Commandery number 9.
There, yep. KT, that's Knights Templar?
Yes, Knight Templar, yeah.
Is that the, Cirillo, is that the organization that you and Carlos belong to?
That is correct.
Yep, so here, that preceded you at Elysian Lodge, the organization that you're part of. I understand so involved successfully that you and Carlos now got 1960. Wow.
Cirillo's going to be speaking about the York Rite coming up, and he is a Grand Commander, I think, at large right now.
The elected Grand Commanders at the moment.
So yeah, it'll be an interesting. Hopefully, Worshipful Bob, you can dial in for Cirillo's talk about the York Rite coming up. I'll go through a few more of these pictures.
I'd like to do that. Well,
we went over these. Let's see.
Let's see what else you got there. Oh, there. I spoke of Robert Fowler's daughter. That's the picture she painted of Elysian Lodge. It shows a flag, American flag on the left, and it's pretty nice. There's a photograph. Yeah, that goes back a while. Look on the extreme right-hand side, the small size of those bushes, which were always a pain in the neck, keeping those things topped and what have you. Here we go way back. I mean, these go back way before my time, back to the 20s and probably 30s and what have you. And But you know, everybody there was a member of Elysian, and some of the fellows that worked hard on during building Elysian, the new Elysian Lodge, you know, they should be acknowledged in what, even though they're not here, they're part of the whole story. And
okay, there's another group of pictures that I'm going to bring up here.
That's the Grand Master of Masons laying the cornerstone of our lodge. When the cornerstone laying ceremony occurred, a lane of Vermont Avenue was blocked off, and they put bleachers out there on the sidewalk and actually extended into the street. And we had Grand Lodge officers, and it was quite a memorable occasion. If you got to scroll up there, there's a couple more here that are very, yeah, there they are, actually setting the.
Look at all the passengers, I mean, all the spectators in the background here. Can you see them off to the lower right?
No,
Yeah.
I can't.
There's a lot of people watching.
Oh yeah, it was well attended, and yeah, there it is right there. And what do they call it? The
Cornerstone.
yeah, but behind it,
The bleachers?
no, behind the stone, there's a box where they put all the mementos of the year or something like that.
A time capsule?
Time capsule. There you go. Yeah, a time capsule. So there's a time capsule there. Maybe someday, I don't know. Hope it's a long time from now, but
Maybe our 150th anniversary, we'll open it up.
I don't know. I hope you're there with me. Hey, there's a good picture. Gosh, that goes back.
Oh, there's next. What's his name next to Billy Dean? Wasn't he? He was a Russian gentleman.
Oh, yeah.
We had the ones too that were really active at the time. Really did a lot for Elysian was Jose Morales and Ken Shiro and Sergeant Boyd. Oh, I tell you. There's been people, you look back over the years.
There's Leighton. There's.
You know, I'm just so happy that I kept active for so many years and got to know these people and participate with them and really miss them. There's Art Holt as master. That the piano up on the stage, that was donated by Art Holt. And his son is still alive, I think. He is living in Vegas, Bob Holt. And but the piano up there was donated by Art and used quite extensively by some of our commercial tenants that we had and during the years. What pictures? Those are priceless. They're priceless.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
No questions. I enjoyed this. I myself am a DeMolay from a few years back, and I enjoyed it. I happen to have with me right now a past master of Culver City Poetry Lodge. His name is Benjamin Villanueva. How are you guys doing?
Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys doing? Benjamin, nice to meet you guys. Haven't met all of you guys before.
So,
Yeah, I think we've met before, Worshipful. Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you. I know, Worshipful Bob, that you're busy. You got a lot of stuff going on. The family's growing. I'm so thrilled and that you did this presentation, and I can't wait for you to make the additional presentation we've been talking about at upcoming in one of our stated meetings when we open back up. So it's important that these aren't just pictures on the wall, but there's a story behind these pictures, and there's story behind the people in those pictures. And I think it was just wonderful.
Worshipful Bob, I want to thank you. It was a wonderful talk. It was heartfelt, heartwarming, and almost made me feel like I really missed out on something.
Well, you did. I hate to say that, but you didn't. And I think just the last statement I want to make, and I think this presentation tonight, particularly on DeMolay, shows how important Masonry is to DeMolay and how important DeMolay is to Masonry.
Bye.